reviews, discussions, and theories about films in horror, sci-fi, and genre. This is the Horror Deconstruction. Like, share, and subscribe to hear more.
It's been nearly 50 years after the bizarre murders of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A group of young upstarts wishing to own property and create their own footprint in Texas run afoul of Leatherface, who has been holed up in a long-defunct home for children. The woman who ran the facility dies after being taken off property the young people claim is theirs. Leatherface aims his anger on sisters Melody and Lila, cutting apart everyone else who gets in his way. Sally Hardesty, the original final girl, comes back to destroy him, but ends up being killed. The sisters best Leatherface as well as they can, and as they celebrate their way back home, Leatherface cuts off Melody's head, showing he still can't be taken out. He makes his way back to his old home in a promise of a possible sequel. What's up, everybody? It's the Horror Deconstruction. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Give us a like, share, and subscribe. Hit that bell icon. Hit that thumbs up. Let us know about the show. Or let other people know about the show. How about that? So today's film, obviously, is Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, which has been released on Netflix. According to the bio, after nearly 50 years of hiding, Leatherface returns to terrorize a group of idealistic young friends who accidentally disrupt his carefully shielded world in a remote Texas town. Directed by David Blue Garcia, written by Chris Thomas Devlin, who did the screenplay, Fede Alvarez, who did the story, and Rodo Sayagüez, who also did the story, starring Sarah Yarkin, Elsie Fisher, Mark Burnham, and a whole bunch of other people. So, this is the I guess it's not a long-awaited sequel to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because there's been a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre films that I have not watched. I'm not really, just to be honest with you, I'm not really a giant fan of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There was a time, and you can just instantly cut off the episode if you don't want to hear the rest of my babbling about this, but there was a time when I did not appreciate cinema like I do now. Not that I'm some sort of snob that knows everything about cinema, but I was truly what you'd call a dumb bastard back then. And there were films that I did not enjoy the first time around until I saw them a second time and go, oh yes, boy, was I stupid. I did it with Fight Club. I did it with The Matrix. I resaw those films and I was like, yes, later on, maybe like a year after I had seen them originally when they came out in the 90s and 2000s or whatever. A film that I really did not get way back when was the original The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974. And everybody loves that movie. More power to them. Here's another thing. I saw House of a Thousand Corpses, which is basically almost a parody version of The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The first time I saw that, I was like, oof, this movie stinks. The second time I saw it, I was like, wow, it was actually a pretty interesting film. I liked it, surprisingly. So when I first saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, all it was to me was basically a 70s film of people talking inside of a van and then long chase scene. I obviously did not appreciate the groundbreaking type of horror film that it was, that is still unsettling to people. So I have to probably rewatch the film and make a much better assessment of it. So that, I'm just letting you know about that. I did watch other films in the chronology of the series. I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation, which has Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, I think it was. Yeah. And that movie was horrible, and everybody hates that movie. I guess people started liking it more. I thought it was a terrible movie, but the last 15 minutes, I absolutely love the last 15 minutes of that film because it's batshit crazy. I did watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, I believe, with 2003, the one with Jessica Biel, and that fantastic shot of her walking to the house because it was well shot. That's why, not any other reason. I did, surprisingly, I saw the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning also. I saw that at a free film screening for it. And I believe, was it Shiri Appleby or one of these young actresses who was the lead in it? She was it was Jordana Brewster. They all sort of look like those brunettes with the thick eyebrows. But it was Jordana Brewster in it. And she was in the audience. I felt bad because we were watching the movie, and the movie, like, it was not good. I don't even remember what happened to it. At least in the Texas Chainsaw 2003, Leatherface gets his arm chopped off, and you're like, wait, how did they make a sequel to this? And it had Arlie Ermy, and it had a brutal scene where a guy gets his teeth busted out of his mouth. But I don't remember really giving a crap about that movie. But I saw the beginning, and everybody in the audience is watching it, and Jordana Brewster's character, who's like the lead of the film, she screams out, help me, somebody help me, and the whole audience laughed at her. And I was like, oof. Like, I don't know if they were laughing at her acting or they just knew that her character was screwed or something. But that had a nice, turnaround ending because with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, at least the first film, Sally Hardesty got away, so she can go tell the cops what happened. And they try to keep it continued in Texas Chainsaw The Next Generation, because you still see her tied up to a bed. The same actress who played Sally Hardesty, she passed away, that actress. And she was replaced with a new actor in this film. It was Marilyn Burns who originally played Sally Hardesty, and she made a nice little cameo in part 4. But that said, there were 2 other films in the franchise. There was Texas Chainsaw 2013 and Leatherface, which was his origin film. And I don't know if any of those films count any of the other movies, like Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw 2 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 and Leatherface and stuff like that, which was part 3. So I just did not give a rat's ass about any of these films. I haven't watched them. I'm mildly interested in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 just because it seems to be a comedy version of the first film. And there's a chainsaw fight, and I'm like, shit, I'll watch that. And people really hate Leatherface, which was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. So, I don't know. To me, it seems all these films, they should be a psychological horror film. I think that's what they should be, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. But it seems like they just slowly turn them into slasher movies, which I think Texas Chainsaw, that's its thing. It's a psychological terror movie. It's a movie about being terrorized by psychopaths and stuff like that. Not just like a straight up a guy running after you with a chainsaw. There has to be like, the part where they make the grandpa sucking the girl's blood out of her finger. Like that's screwy, man. But anyway, this movie, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, if you drank every time I said Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you'd be getting some sort of rehab right now. But this new one, much like the Halloween, that horrible Halloween remake, which I didn't like, a lot of people love that movie. Halloween Kills, one of the worst movies I've seen. And this is like Halloween. This is a blueprint ripoff of those new Halloween movies, because they jettison every film after the second movie and just make this a direct sequel to the first film so they can make some money off of it. That's what Halloween and Halloween Kills has done. Badly, in my opinion. Because the problem with those new films, in my opinion, because I'm sure there's people saying, you're not a real horror fan. Well, I don't give a flying crap what you think. The problem with those 2 films, this new Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I actually think is better than Halloween and Halloween Kills, but not by much, believe me, is that Halloween and Halloween Kills believe that they're saying some sort of giant message, that they're like saying something that's so important, in the fabric of society. Like one's about overcoming horrible traumatic experience, the first one, which you can see in Hereditary, which handles it better, and then Halloween Kills is about group violence on people, like just people in general just going crazy and doing crazy. And we've seen plenty of that shit in the United States recently, and they think that it's like some sort of weird gravitas, which is all bullcrap. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre is just a straight slasher while ripping off those. My problem with both of these films, with Halloween, Halloween Kills, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, is that they've completely done away with the original blueprints of their own films. Sure, they're both slashers in a sense, but like I said, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film, had a very unsettling... I'm sure people in the 70s were like, it was bumming their high watching this movie when they were on acid, seeing a house full of bones and skeletons and shit and corpses sitting at the table. And, it's just a psychologically terrifying type of film, because I'm sure they never saw something like that before. And it's about this girl being slowly driven mad. It's a crazy movie, you know what I mean? And Halloween, while it is a slasher, and it does lead sort of all of the slashers after it, there was intensity to it. There was a feeling of dread. It wasn't just like how Halloween Kills is just him running after people, cutting them up like it was a Jason movie. Jason movies are Jason movies. You understand? Like if you want to see the perfect distillation of Jason films, I say Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason, I think it's Jason Lives or Jason whatever. It's Part 6. Go watch that one. That's a distillation of what a Jason is. Jason does that type of film. That's his movies. Dumb kind of slasher movies. But they're fun. Like, that's good. The best Halloween, obviously, Halloween 1. No other Halloween movie has been like that film, because John Carpenter made that what it was. It was perfect. And even if I wasn't like not going crazy about the original, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's certainly better than whatever the hell the rest of these movies are that Tobe Hooper did. Tobe Hooper did the original, and that's why it's the best, and that's why it stuck with people. And these people, instead of trying to emulate those films, and Texas Chainsaw Next Generation tried to do that, because, you know, they had Matthew McConaughey. He was a great actor, and he was really good as a psychopath in that. But I guess people just want to have a slasher film, and Netflix obviously didn't give them enough money. Or I think Netflix bought the film. I don't think they necessarily produced it themselves. I'm not sure. But now we move on with this film. And the sale of the trailer for it was about this, you know, I don't know if it's Zoomers or millennials. I'm really bad with labeling of people because I just don't pay attention to saying that crap. I'm more of a doomer and a coomer, I assume. But these Zoomers, or whatever these young people are, millennials, I don't know, Generation X, boomers, who the hell knows. These kids go into this town. There's these two lead characters. There's Melody. She has a look like these modern comedian girls with the curly hair and stuff. So she's sort of like these characters all set up as annoying millennials or whatever they are to the audiences. There's a joke in the trailer where there's a guy who holds up his cell phone towards Leatherface, and he says, "If you try anything, you're gonna be so canceled, bro." So I'm sure the people who laughed at and I think that is sort of clever in how annoying some people can be with that. But I'm sure the people who laughed at that hard weren't are looking for a certain way. Like, I guess like The Hunt is, or it's I guess I wouldn't say this is a right wing propaganda like horror film, but you know, it does show how some annoying people can be with that whole cancel culture stuff. And I'm pretty sure there's people who love that. There's people who really love that all these Zoomers and young people are getting killed off for being like ethnically diverse. And I'm sure the thing that frightened them more than Leatherface was the actual interracial couple at the beginning of the film. They probably got more scared of that than actually Leatherface because they're dipshits. So anyway, we got Melody, who is the quote-unquote lead. Also Lila, who's also quote-unquote lead, played by Elsie Fisher, who is a girl who, for some, I don't know why it was important to the film, but she survived a school shooting, and I guess this film is truly telling kids who survived school shootings that they gotta be the good guy with the gun, quote unquote. So pick up the guns if you want to survive yourself. So it's I'm sure people who hate guns and people who have been shot up actually in schools and stuff like that will not appreciate the message of this film. So anyway, they drive into town. They're led by Dante, who's played by Jacob Lattimore. He's a good actor. His girlfriend is Nell Hudson, who plays Ruth. And it's the four of them driving in this car. They bought this little town in Texas that they want to refurbish, and they're going to auction off to people, so it becomes their own little hub for a lot of cooks and stuff, because I think him and his girlfriend are cooks on the internet, like a YouTube channel type of celebrities or something like that, or Instagram or whatever. And they go into this town. Just to cut it short, they meet up with Richter, who's played by Mo Dunford. He you'd think would be the quote unquote Daryl, say if you're watching The Walking Dead, the sort of tough Southern boy guy who has a bunch of guns. And Sarah Yarkin's character Melody gives him shit because he has guns, and instantly you think, oh, she hates guns because she's an asshole. I think, which was lost in the context, was the part that her sister actually got shot up in a school, so that's probably why she hates guns. But they didn't like make it clear enough. I think if you have a family member that's in that sort of drastic situation, you'd be like, well, fuck this, you know? So anyway, they drive into town. They get try to clean up the town a little bit before this bus of possible potential property owners comes through, so they can, they, I guess, quote unquote, gentrify this area of Texas that nobody lives in anymore. So Richter is the guy who is basically fixing up the town until these people come in. What ends up happening is that they go into this like an adoption agency place, or it was a place that ran for children that don't have any families and stuff like that. And they meet up with, and I was instantly recognized it was Alice Krieg as Mrs. MC. I don't know why her name was Mrs. MC. She ran this place for a long time, and there's a discrepancy on who actually owns the deed to this house. And Leatherface is there, but he doesn't wear a mask. He's always in the shadows and stuff like this. He's got to be fucking like 70 or 80 years old. He's a big fat guy, which people are shocked at, like, because he didn't he was in shape in the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So what's he doing walking around here? And my idea is, well, what is the connection to this and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Because he's with his family in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Do you know, like, he's with a family, like he's living with those people, like. He's got grandpa. He's got that weird guy who owns the diner, the barbecue place. He's got that hippie that likes to cut himself on his hand. So they're family in the first movie, but in this now suddenly like he's living with this woman at this adoption place. How long has he been living there? Because it shows photos of him as a kid. So was he adopted by that crazy family in the first film and then conditioned and then came back? There's no explanation because it seems like he's been there the whole time. It makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what the hell that shit is about. It seems like a bunch of crap. But anyway, Mrs. MC, they force these two Texas Rangers or Texas cops. They force her out of the house, and then there might be a discrepancy of whether Dante actually has the deeds to the house, and then that pisses off Richter, who takes the keys away from Dante and also the girls and the people in the party bus that's coming up to see the town. So Richter's an asshole too, because he's like literally took everybody's keys to drive away. He says until he finds out the truth. It's like, get the fuck out! Give these people back their keys. Don't be an asshole, because he pretty much sets up these people's death sentences in the film. Idiot. So anyway, what happens is Leatherface, he's driving in the car with the Texas cops, and the girlfriend, who's actually probably the only nice person in this film, Lila. Oh, actually, the other girl, not Lila, Ruth, who's the girlfriend of Dante. Lila's the other nice person in the film. She's not a bad guy. And anyway, Ruth gets killed. The sheriffs get killed. Leatherface cuts off the Mrs. MC's face and wears it as his own mask. He comes back into town. He just begins slaughtering everybody. So it's the same, paint by numbers. It's just a slasher movie. It's filmed really well. There's some interesting kills in it. There's a part where when Leatherface breaks the arm of one of the cops, and with the bone sticking out, he stabs it into the guy's neck. So I mean, it's traditional slasher shit. He stabs the girl Ruth in her stomach, and then she instantly dies. I mean, it doesn't take a while to die from a stab wound like that. It's not like anything important, vital. She'll die from it eventually, but anyway, whatever. So she dies, and then he goes back into town. He gets in the party bus. The big scene is the party bus when he gets. It's a party bus full of all these people that are young investors into the town. He gets into the party bus, and that scene where the guy goes, you'll get canceled, bro. He gets chopped into pieces, and it's a nice set piece where he's just a guy inside of a bus, like slashing everybody to death. There's a young actress that shows up as she's sort of an in-between between Dante and the town of people ordering stuff. It was Jessica Alane as Catherine, and she gets a scene where she gets severed in half from a chainsaw. This chainsaw is magical because I noticed that when somebody noted that Leatherface chops off a girl's head at the end, it doesn't even go through her hair or anything. You don't see the hair ruffle, but that might just be like lazy effects. They made a big deal about John Larroquette doing his voiceover because he did the original narration in the first film, so then he does it in this one. It's like big deal. Like I would rather see John Larroquette in the movie himself, like playing like the brother of Sally Hardesty coming back. So that also brings up Sally Hardesty. She catches wind that all this stuff is happening. I don't know how you cannot find Leatherface 50 years hiding in one area, and they don't arrest him for any of this, but he's still around. And the town has gotten some little notoriety by selling like little chainsaw, party favors and stuff, and that's how they get away from Leatherface at one point. Sally Hardesty comes back. They totally rip off the character of I can't even think of why I can't remember her name. The main lady from Halloween. She's just like this tough and hardened version of her original character. It's obviously a different actress, and she's like, I guess she became a Texas Ranger, and she has decided to take him out for good. I don't know how she hasn't been investigating this fucking guy for 50 years, but now she just hears about it randomly once and goes, oh, okay. Because with Leatherface, the lady Mrs. MC, she like put his chainsaw behind a wall, so obviously she knew what he did, or like he must have hid with her after him. Like you would think the cops would be like, hey, didn't you take care of a guy who like had a chainsaw? Like, wouldn't she want to destroy the chainsaw? Like, I don't get it. And anyway, so Sally Hardesty comes back. She's all badass. She's running around with a shotgun. She's not really helping with anybody. She's she's only there for 5 seconds. It's a disservice to the character. Jamie Lee Curtis obviously was the actor I'm talking about for the first Halloween movie. She played Laurie Strode. Sorry about that. And so anyway, Sally Hardesty comes back into this one. She makes no difference in the film besides letting a shotgun get into one of the main character's hands. She gets chainsawed and lifted up into the air. She gets killed, and who gives a shit? The two girls fight off Leatherface at the end, and he almost killed both of them. The guy Richter gets killed up pretty quick. I thought he was going to survive, but they wanted to make it, the final girls in this movie. So it's not really anything that's monumental in this film or anything that's new that happens. There's nothing that's surprising. I guess if you're into some kills, I don't really remember most of the kills besides the broken arm one. I know I said they were good because they're graphic, but there was anything super special about them. The chainsaw inside the bus obviously is probably the best reason and one of the best sellers of this film. So I don't think the movie was awful. I just thought it was a little bit mediocre, and that's why you only hear me doing this episode, because I do not like to put my other friends through watching mediocre films. It's either got to be very good or very terrible. Mediocre is not really worth watching. And this is what it is. It's a mediocre film. It's fine. There's nothing great about it, but there really is nothing that's worthwhile watching about it, especially if you're used to what the original the Texas Chainsaw Massacre was about, which is psychological horror. I think that the finale where Leatherface goes and he decapitates one of the sisters because they stupidly drive an auto, because I guess this must have been a Tesla joke or something, the car drives itself, and he chops off Melody's head at the end. I thought that was pretty awesome. I was grateful that they did that, but then it's obviously showing that Leatherface can't be killed. So whatever. It's a who gives a shit movie. Mark Burnham as Leatherface is fine. He's a big guy. He's running around. He can run quick sometimes, which doesn't make any sense because he's got to be like 70 or 80 years old, this character. Unless he was like a gigantic 12-year-old in the first movie. Other than that, maybe I'm completely missing the mark for people that enjoyed this film. If you can enjoy this film, then that's great. I can give a rat's ass. It was for free on Netflix, but it's still taken away from your time. It's only like an hour and 20 minutes, which is a good sweet spot for this type of film where you can just watch it straight through and just finish it. And I don't know. There's some interesting shots, like the part where he's in the sunflower scene area and stuff like that. I think that is it. Breaking new ground? No, like I said before, it isn't. Is it a worthwhile sequel? I don't think so. I had more fun with the ending of Texas Chainsaw Massacre Next Generation than this. Michael Bay produced that other Texas Chainsaw remake, so I don't make of that what you will, but people really liked that one, because I definitely remember that one being filmed really beautifully. But this is a movie on a Netflix type of budget. There's nothing special about it. It's just what's selling now is the remake for Halloween. Once people saw the megabucks that they made from Halloween movies, they're going to follow this. Just like if this movie could have had Spider-Man in it, they would put fucking Spider-Man in it. But Spider-Man's not in it. And now we got to deal with crappy movies that don't mean anything to anyone. So with that, I would give the rating for this film a 5. Wait, a 4.5 out of 10. Your girlfriend being really nice, to watching to make sure that an old lady makes it through her illness, but ended up being dog food by the end of the afternoon. And with that, this has been the Horror Deconstruction.